Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Anecdotal Adventure Reads Worm. What? I'm your co-host Ashley, and this is my brand new co-host.
Hello, I'm Sonya.
I've had Sonya finally convinced another one of the friend group to read Worm. She's been listening to it through the audiobook, so that's quite a different experience from what I've done. So I'm interested to hear the thoughts. This
Yep.
episode is going to be focused on arcs 1 through 12. I just want to get Sonya's basic thoughts on Worm before we jump into going back to doing it one episode at a time, one arc at a time. So Sonya, Worm.
Worm. Oh my god. Oh my god. Taylor. Oh, like at the beginning of the of Worm, you like get the idea from Taylor that she's like nervous and not really able to do as much. And then slowly throughout the book you realize, holy shit, she's a genius and so dangerous. Like she is such a supervillain. Like her ability to do stuff is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, especially in these arcs coming forward, she's such a supervillain.
Such a supervillain.
She's very good at being a supervillain, so we're not complaining. We're just it's a fact.
Yeah, like in the Endbringers fight with Leviathan, she was like the entire time bringing herself down, like I can't be of any use here, I can't do anything. And then towards the end, she's the reason they found Leviathan anywhere because she was tracking them the entire time.
Yeah, that's a pattern with Taylor. It's like I can't do
Yeah,
anything. Proceeds to win the fight.
exactly.
Proceeds to do
Like,
everything.
yeah, and it's like incredible listening to her thought process of it versus like watching other people watch her fight,
Yeah,
reading
no,
other people watch her fight.
I don't have the texts from you pulled up, but I had Sonya send me a lot of her reactions as she was reading it arc by arc, and some of that it was a gold mine. It was a gold mine of what's going on, huh? This is happening now. This is happening. Ah, this is so
Yeah,
cool.
it was wild. Because I was listening to an audiobook, it was probably a little bit slower than reading it, but the people who were doing the audiobook, they did voices, which was incredible because they sometimes did effect. Like with Gru, his audio distortion when he's wearing his outfit because of his weird sensing disruption powers, they did a weird distortion with that, which was really cool and super immersive during that.
Yeah, I haven't listened to the audiobook personally. I just know it's really good and exists. Uh,
Yeah.
I read the thing with my eyes, so I probably missed a little more things that people who listen to the audiobook do, because you're listening to it slower, you're taking in more of the information.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go arc by arc. Arc 1! What were your impressions when you read arc 1? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't remember the lines between arcs. I believe arc one was when she first fought Lung,
Yes,
correct?
gestation, yes, arc 1. Uh,
Gestation.
she she fought Lung that arc. We were introduced to her life, being bullied, having just like a crappy life in general.
Yeah.
And that she was gonna become a superhero because that's what's her escape. Boy, did that go south.
Oh yeah, that went
Boy, did
so
that.
poorly. I will touch on
Ooh.
that on further arcs. But in the first arc, like her talking about her life and stuff, and that was like pretty interesting. We got a good sense of like the character, Taylor, and like her relationship, her hatred of school, which I think works a lot into the way she acts. Like her ability to go through all her stuff, be like, this isn't gonna work, this is gonna work. Her quick reaction speed is probably because of the time she's gotten bullied as well, because she's had to deal with maybe not physical fights, but mental fights. So she's gotten stronger that way, even though it's terrible that she got bullied like that. And then I don't remember if it's arc one or two, but then when she like goes to fight Worm, I think you mentioned this.
Goes to fight Worm, Lung, you
Not
mean?
Worm, not Long, yes.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned this yesterday, whereas she was not prepared at all to fight Lung. She was like, I'm gonna go to this area that I know there's probably a lot of crime in and see what I fight.
The thing about Taylor is even if she says she's not prepared, she's prepared.
I bet she spent hours and hours looking at every single superhero and supervillain there is and like noting down pros, cons, like weaknesses, strengths. She is over prepared, but like she needs to be.
So We learned in Arc 1 that Taylor is brutal. Even without thinking about it, when she attacks Lung's genitals.
Oh my god. When that was
Which
brought up, I was
I will
like,
find out
Taylor.
later that that's caused like some permanent damage, and they had to get Amy in to heal it, or he was gonna die.
Yeah, she's like, oh, it's fine. He heals. It'll be nothing. Him in the background, I'm dying. I'm dying.
Yeah.
This hurts.
So the interlude for that chapter was from Danny, Taylor's father. So we got some peeks in the head, Taylor's civilian life from an outside perspective, which was interesting and sad. Danny's kind of a sad person.
Feel so bad for him through the entirety of forms.
Trying, but they made some mistakes.
Yeah, and also he's falling just short of what Taylor really needs at the moment.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning, he like doesn't bring up the bullying at all, which isn't really how he should go about it, but like he's trying his best to be there for Taylor.
Yeah, like he's trying to respect her boundaries. And like that's great, but Taylor needs a little less boundaries at that moment. Like, because she needs you to move and like go to a different school. You need to leave Brockton Bay. Like, or at least like we learn later that like she like asks to move to a different school when like she's back from getting a concussion in a later arc, and the school says no, we can't do that, which is absolutely like
fucking bullshit. It's bullshit.
And then in real life, a school would do everything they could to avoid getting sued, so they would take that. They would be like, absolutely, yeah, sure, let's do that, so I don't get sued for millions of dollars.
I find it, honestly, it would have probably been easier for them to have helped
like
her
moving
move.
the bullies around, like the fact that the school did so little, which is also demonstrated in these arcs.
Oh my god, like, that I think it's a later
Gladly.
arc.
I think it's
Mr. Gladly.
It might be arc 2 or 3. So let's go to arc 2, Insinuation, where Taylor gets an invitation from Lisa to join the meetup with the Undersiders and get her cut of the cash, and then a job offer that changes her life as we know it.
Oh yeah, no, when like the minute she's like, yeah, I should do this as a spy, I was like, you're not gonna be a spy. You're not gonna be Taylor, a spy. You're gonna join.
You're desperate for friends. We know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and also they were super kind to you. You're gonna want to be friends with them.
You're in a honeymoon period of having a single friend in your life. Not just a single, but the number of your friends not quadrupled in the beginning. So
like, oh my god. Like the minute that happened, I was like, okay, I see where this is going. We get a villain POV. That's really interesting. I've kind of wanted to read a villain POV book for a bit, and I think this is a perfect one.
Yeah, our Worm is a really good villain one, because Taylor wants to be a hero, and she could be really good at it. So she's good at everything. She like puts her mind to. That's just because she's so smart and has a lot of willpower and will take hits and will still keep going. But she as a villain it's kind of like arc 1 is her villain origin story, and arc 2 is like the first real chapter of the book. It's like in a different universe, Victoria would be the main character. And I'm not kidding. Wildbow originally, I believe, made the story with Amy and Victoria in mind as dual protagonists, but then scrapped it and wrote it from, changed a lot of the story and wrote it from Taylor's perspective. But of course, Victoria and Amy persist in the story. Victoria's in fact the interlude perspective from this chapter, where we see that heroes may not be as heroic as we thought.
No, like, oh my god, what? Listening to that perspective was wild. She's like, yeah, I almost killed a person again. Can you heal him? And
yeah, we get the feeling that this is like routine.
It is, and it's so messed up. And like that leading up to like the Slaughterhouse 9 part, it really shows in that. But like before that, introductions to the Undersiders were made during this arc.
How did you think of? Well, I'm gonna refer to them as their civilian identities when we're not talking about in the villain group. So Brian, Alec, Lisa, and Rachel. First
I've got to say, my first impression of Alec was, hey, that's the goofy background character. I don't have to pay much attention to him.
Regret.
Boy, was I wrong. I wrong.
I love how everyone in the beginning, I had Sonya guess who the murderers were going to be too. She guessed Lisa and Rachel, which is the same guess that Cassidy gave, and that's
makes sense.
Hysterical.
I mean, Rachel, I think, is pretty obvious. I think we got, like, from the start.
Rachel was already the murderer, like, one of them.
Yeah.
It's the second one who's the real mystery.
Mm-hmm. Just, oh my god. Alec just blew me out of the water when that happened.
Yeah. So who's your favorite member of the Undersiders? Besides Taylor, obviously. Because she's great.
Taylor.
She'd win every time if we included Taylor in the poll.
During Arc 2, it was Tattletale. It shifted from Tattletale to Bitch later on.
Yeah, Bitch is great.
Bitch is great. And, like, once you realize why she's the way she is, she becomes a lot more sympathetic of a character.
Yeah, and I think Arc 2 overall, I believe that ends on the we're robbing a bank.
Yes, oh my god. They're, like, planning to rob a bank before breakfast is insane. And I don't know how they did it.
Arc 3, Agitation, was them robbing that bank.
Yes. But, like, I want to bring up, like, the Undersiders are so good as, like, a team. They naturally clicked together just like that. Like, they're planning, like, in the actual fighting and stuff was so good. As a player who plays D&D and Masks and City of Mist, watch this, by the way. As soon
as we can do those, like, one-shots where I get you guys to play the Parahumans TTRPG, I just need at least 3 people to have Red Worm. So 2 down.
Yes.
2 down, 1 to go.
But, like, it takes literal hours for us to plan anything, like, actually talking. And, like, they did it, like, have 20 minutes. To Kingmaker's campaign, sometimes a large majority or whole episodes are them trying and failing to make plans. Even if they do make plans, they're not good plans. They're bad plans. They fall apart immediately. Yeah. No one sticks to the plan. No one. Yeah, and I love every time everyone's like, I don't know how these powers are going to work together well. And me in the background going, ha. They work perfectly together. What are you doing? They're fantastic together. There couldn't be a lot of better pairings in the world. I mean, like, Shadow, Bug, Information, Dog, Nerve Control. Mm-hmm. Those seem entirely separate until, they're not. They're not. Yeah, like, I think Tattletale's the information person, of course, and she's also disarms people with what she's saying. She's like, if you don't want your big secret to be spilled, don't say anything. And she's also, like, a master bullshitter, because she pretends her power is, like, a mind reading. Throughout the whole book, until we get to, like, Lisa's interlude, you don't know what her powers do specifically. You don't know what's going on. She's she's a background antagonist in Taylor's journey as a spy, but we're also rooting for her because Lisa's great. Mm-hmm. Lisa's great. She's manipulative, but she's great. She's manipulative in a good way for Taylor. Yeah, she's like, Taylor, you're in a bad spot. I'm gonna get you to have some friends. And also in Arc 3, we got our first introduction to the wards. Oh my god. Yeah, it was the fight in the bank where we got it first introduced to them. And then clock blockers. What an incredible name. Kid Win. I remember me and Cassidy specifically, I didn't participate in making fun of Kid Win, except his name's Kid Win. I think that tells you all you need to know. I cannot in good conscience make fun of him because listening to his interlude makes me sad. Makes me so sad. Makes me sad, yeah. So Clock Blocker, I don't know if we got their names. I only remember Clock Blockers and Vistas. So I know Clock Blocker's real name is Dennis. Vista's the one that can manipulate, like, space, basically. She's that's insane. She can manipulate space. The wards have a space and a time manipulator, so the wards are fucking stacked, and they still lost.
Also,
I know, right?
the Wards did something really clever in that fight where they had Clockwalker and Aegis switch costumes, I believe.
Yes.
So you go to fight Aegis hand in hand, and then you get fucking stuck. But of course, it doesn't work because Lisa's there. If Lisa wasn't there, the Undersiders would have died so many times.
Yeah,
It's
and
like not even funny.
Like they didn't communicate, like none of the Undersiders communicated at all during that fight, except for Lisa yelling out information and like yelling at information, and Taylor just immediately pretty much comes up with this plan of, I know how to deal with clock blocker. I'm gonna put bugs in his suit so he can't move. I would not want to be in Clockwalker's spot.
I'd give up. I'd go, fuck this. You win. Goodbye.
The minute I see a swarm of coordinated bugs coming for me, I would turn around and leave. Like,
yeah,
nope, you can have the money. I'm leaving.
Yeah,
goodbye.
actually,
it's not worth it.
Looks like my shift has ended. Oops, goodbye. Later.
Would you look at that?
We have to burn the city to the ground.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I'd become a supervillain.
Taylor's powers are really well suited style-wise to being a villain because bugs and her outfit, as she said herself, is like a villain outfit.
Yeah,
and that's why she got mistaken.
There's this big thing where they the team's like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, basically, because Taylor is pestilence.
Yeah.
Gru is like death. I mean, they all represent fear.
Yeah, they really do.
As someone who's also listened to the Magnus Archives, they all represent very
Magnus Archives.
They have some similarities to that podcast. Go listen to that podcast, by the way. If you like Worm, I don't know if you like the Magnus Archives, but you probably will. You probably will.
I mean, bugs
do make an appearance, especially in the first arc. And it goes a very different direction. And Sonya hates maggots, so I'm sure she loved that arc.
I had to skip over some specific wording of some parts because maggots
isn't about the not Magnus Archives, unfortunately. No. It's about Worm. So arc 4 Shell was them going to the pier after, and the fight with Bakuto starting, which was fucking horrific. But let's focus in on the pier scene first, because it was like a nice shopping trip with Lisa and Taylor. It was super fun gal palling time with Lisa being like, don't tell the rest of the Undersiders I fucked up.
I'll pay for your clothes. Don't say this.
I'll pay for your silence. Alec buys a Kid Win t-shirt because he made a fool of Kid Win during that fight.
And it's just irony. It's Alec is just hilarious background character during this time.
Yeah, and also, well, I think during arc 4 he has a more prominent role, and in the arc with Bakuda. But they go to talk to a diner. Taylor, they're talking, they're being friends. Everyone's like, Taylor's like, are you guys my friends? And all 3 of them look at her like she's the dumbest person in the world.
Like, you idiot, yeah.
We just robbed a bank together. Absolutely.
And then she switches from that to, how'd you all get your powers? And then
Wombo's admitted that, and I think that this part could use some rewriting, because Taylor is smart enough. She's done so much research. She's is shown to have done so much stuff that a lot of readers think she should know about trigger events. Like, she should know about that. Yeah. She experienced one. But also, it all needs to be rewritten, like, an extra sentence, basically, of, like, Taylor knows but wants to talk about it, but doesn't know how to bring it up, because she's awkward as fuck.
Yeah, but then we get a good look at, I forget his civilian name? Brian.
That happens in a minute. I want to focus on the scene because I really like Doc Ford, and I remember it very well. So Taylor talks about her trigger event, which is awful. She gets shoved in a locker full of putrid period products, toiletries, and other such horrible things that has rotted over the entirety of winter break.
Oh. And there were bugs and stuff. That's just where she got her control of the
comatose, and all the school did was, like, pay for her medical bills. Absolutely fucking not. I got a concussion one time in school, and they paid more for my medical bills. My mom still threatened to sue them. No! I don't care if the school doesn't know who it is. Fucking figure it out, or I'm suing you for negligence.
Yes, but also like all the kids
Taylor is not in the financial place to do that. Like her parents do not have
Uh-huh.
enough money to sue the school.
Hmm.
It just makes me the injustice of it all makes me mad.
Honestly, I'm mad at everyone in that school for letting that happen. Because even the kids that were like walking by watching, they didn't do anything. Anything. Seriously. I don't. So horrible of them to like not have done anything for that.
Yeah, and then we got Purity's Interlude, which Cassidy and I were like, I can't believe Wanda made us sympathize with the Nazi. Fuck that.
Yeah, I know, right?
He does that, but like not revealing Purity as a Nazi until later in the book, and at first like talking about her family, and we think we might be a vigilante. Nope.
No, I think it's like
And
the
the
second arc
Nazi.
with her in it. It's or is it later in the same arc? I think it's the second arc with her in it. We realize, oh, she's a Nazi.
No, we know she's a
God
Nazi.
fucking damn it.
We know she's a Nazi in her Interlude because she goes
Yeah.
to meet leader of the Nazis.
Yes, yeah, I broke it up in my mind as like the part with her family and then the part with the
And
leader.
then the
trying to
real
get help.
interlude for the chapter was Brutus's, who is a good boy.
Brutus! Oh my god, Brutus's interlude was so cute.
Yeah, and the end of that arc was them fighting Lee and Uber, which is like, oh, haha, funny. And they get knocked off the roof, and then Bakuto comes. Same trick doesn't work, and she fucking blows them all to pieces, and they have to run away. Leading in Arc 5, Hive. So, Arc 5 is them basically running away from Bakuto. That's the arc.
Like seriously, they try to get away as much as possible. I can't remember if this is in arc 4 or 5, where like Bakuda is like talking about like, yeah, you need people to fear you, and like if that person won't shoot a gun, death. Will you shoot the gun? Yes.
She was like, there are 3 aspects to being a leader: being liked, being feared, and being unpredictable. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't like that Taylor kind of took that speech to heart and used it later when she was doing her leader stuff in her territory. Makes me sad. I'm like,
it makes me so sad.
Please don't take advice from Bakuda. Please
but
don't.
Also, Bakuda is so terrifying as a villain and should not be part of the Asian bad boys.
Every time you remember what the ABB stands for.
It's just like you could
that whole arc is basically us seeing the team in a situation they are not equipped to deal with, like getting super beat up because of Taylor's actions and like the just all the things that she's done up to that point, and like I don't know, like Alec actually passes out from overuse of his powers, and also displays himself being a sociopath for the first time. When he like is talking to Bakuda on the same level as her, of like, oh, you blew a guy up, cool.
It's like, cool, yeah, I understand what you're talking about. Makes sense.
It looks interesting, and you're just like, oh.
I'm gonna be honest, that flew right over my head until the interlude with Alec, and then I was like, shit.
Then you look back, you recontext that scene. No, it was not like, it was pretty obvious that he's not acting during that arc. Like, you gotta have to talk about it for like to not, if you're binge listening or watching, to like reflect and go, oh, that was super fucked up.
Yeah, like for me it was like, that's kind of
messed up things.
And for me it was like, that's kind of weird. Oh well. And then later I was like, oh, I should have seen this coming.
And the interlude for this chapter was Gregor the Snail. One of our, we get a perspective from K53s, which we had heard about up until this point in time. And Gregor works for Faultline's crew. His skin is like drugs.
And he runs a club. Is the
Faultline's crew is the one that owns the club. He works there.
Yeah. That was an interesting interlude.
And we get a look into K53s and the little larger story that seems to be going on in the background of where I'm what's going on with those? What's going on with those weird tattoos? Huh? Don't know. Moving on.
Which we find out later.
Yes. Then Arc 6, Tangle. I believe this is the villain meetup chapter, where all the villains come to meet. I might be mistaken, that might be a later chapter, but these couple arcs are them trying to deal with the ABB as the villains and the heroes, both going all out, working with each other, going into separate little gangs. This is where we really kind of learn to like Rachel in this arc. Because this is when the bonding moments between Rachel and Taylor happen.
Yeah, and like the info about Labyrinth being...
Also, we should note from the past, the ward's named Taylor Skitter.
Yeah.
And the level of power that the heroes have, it's interesting, because, like, if you haven't given yourself a name yet, it hasn't stuck, then the wards get to name you, the heroes get to name you. And they were talking about, like, naming her something bad or embarrassing.
But then they were like, oh, we got beat by her. We cannot announce that we got beat by, like, Butterfly, okay? We can't do that. We gotta give her an actual name. So they settled on Skitter.
Yeah, and the arc, the interlude for this one was from Canary. And I remember being very, I was like, fuck, this is really awful.
Oh, yeah, no, she got, like, because she told her ex to go fuck himself. And oh god, because her powers are so active from like being on stage singing. I think this is the first time we get a view of people who use their powers for like entertainment purposes, not just as heroes and villains.
We knew they existed because Taylor had talked about like 3 types of capes, being the heroes, the villains, and like the people in between, who are like the civilians. This is the first time we see a character. Although we know they exist, because like. Mm-hmm. Tinkers exist, so of course they exist.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes to the worst prison ever. Was her accidental first time. It's just they don't let her talk in court. They treat her like a monster. Her lawyer's kind of shit. The judge is super cruel. And then Dragon, the keeper of the prison, is super sad. Because Dragon's like, this is unfair. I'll make sure you go to this block, talk to this person. She'll protect you.
I just altogether feel bad for Canary for being put, like, it was clearly an accident, and like, geez, her lawyer was so bad.
And just like the way that parahumans are treated as less than human in the court setting, just made me really sad, especially when they're like, if they're a villain, at least I feel like they can defend themselves. I don't feel like they've done something bad and they've owned up to it. They're calling themselves a villain, for Christ's sake. I feel like they can defend themselves in that situation. They know that too. They don't feel helpless or powerless. But Canary, who's a civilian, who didn't mean this to happen, who was like just having a good time at her concert, super upsetting.
Yeah. It's just like, and like we get a good look at Lung and Bakura working together to try and escape, and like forcing Canary to do that, and then also we get a look at inside the birdcage for the first time, which was really interesting. And Bakura going like fangirling over how it was built, like, this is awesome. I love this. Like, if you pierce out one place, the door is shut down. That's awesome. Like, pretty wild. And we get a first look at how like smart Dragon is, because she's the one who designed it originally. It's pretty interesting to see that. And like we get a good look at like this, like there's a void around it and it's like floating there somehow. It's like really well done. And we get a good look at, like, from all we know of Dragon so far, it's a voice on the comms, in the cameras, on the screens, and we don't know, like, exactly what she is, who she is. We don't have any idea of her sympathy. At first, I thought she was just, like, a Jarvis system sort of thing, where, like, she doesn't have any personality. She's just kind of there to, like, do stuff in the background. But,
it's really funny, because we don't know. The Dragon is an AI at this point in the story.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, she's a Jarvis type. You connected her to an AI. That's really funny.
Yeah. But then, like, that scene came on, I was like, oh, maybe not so much. Because, like, she clearly has a lot of emotion and, like, guilt and stuff. But, like, yeah. And then later we find out she's an AI. And you're like, interesting. I was partially right. Who would have thought?
So Arc 7 is a turning point in the story. They are asked to infiltrate the ball, like for the hero gala, she sees Emma there, and like this immediately disconnects her from like she was already like Arms Master's a bastard. I'll just tell Miss Militia all my stuff instead.
Arms Master's a bastard, yeah.
And when she sees Emma there, it's just like, oh, this is the final straw. These people suck. And Arc 7 is where she burns the letter to Miss Militia. She decides she's going to stay with the Undersiders. Things happen. So they also meet Coil this one, I think, too.
Yes, they do. It's towards the end. She only was doing it at the beginning because she's like, this is the chance I have to meet the boss and turn them in. By the end, she doesn't want to turn them in anyways.
But then, as soon as she makes the decision to stay with the Undersiders, things go to shit. Like, soon, because the honeymoon period, over. Because she finds out the Coil kidnapped Dinah, the bank robbery was just a, like, distraction for that, and she feels super complicit, and it's like, I cannot do this, whereas all the Undersiders are like, we're super villains. What did you think was gonna happen? Like, they get into a big brawl, and Taylor's like, fuck it, I guess she, like, decides to go off on her own at this point, because she can't stay with people who, like, her illusion shatters. Like, she thinks Brian's a good person, but, like, Brian, super selfish. He's willing to do anything to protect himself and his family. And Lacey's like, I've been looking for Coral this whole time, so no. And even Alex, like, I don't know, that deal sounds super good.
Sociopath.
Yeah, this stuff seems nice.
Alex probably mentally was like, oh, that's mild, huh?
A child got kidnapped.
Oh no.
Looks into the camera like they're in the office. Oh no.
Yeah.
Sirens.
I feel bad for Dinah.
Arc 8. Then Endbringer attacks. Leviathan rages upon the city in desperation. I remember reading this chapter for the first time. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, there's so many things happening at once.
Like,
it's
the
hard.
sirens like narrate things. People are talking all over the place, and like it does a good job of displaying the absolute chaos of a moment of like, oh, we're all gonna die.
Listening to it makes it even more chaotic.
It brings the Undersiders back together for a time because they had all talked about this before, and they're like, well, we all agreed if an Endbringer attacked the city, we'd help. So they go. Yeah. And they let heroes and villains fight, although there is some unfair hierarchy there. They're all trying to save the city, guys. Maybe heal them equally. Because usually the villains do have more powerful abilities than you. Maybe just, like, truce them. Maybe put a tracker on them. There's a truce in line. You're breaking the law you made when you do bad things to the villains during this time. Because there is a truce while this is up. So heroes work with villains, villains work with heroes, because it's an Endbringer. It's the end of times.
The truth exactly is we don't turn each other in, we don't fight each other, because if we do, no one's going to fight an Endbringer in the future.
And
everyone's going to die.
Broke the truce.
He tried to be subtle about it, but
little did he remember. Little did he know Taylor and Tattletale are geniuses. So in Tattletale, it's just like, oh, you want everyone to know you broke the truce? Then sure, fine by me. I'll just put that out there. Don't worry about me.
Yeah, and what's the guy from another city who is also the head of a team being there like, well, it doesn't matter if it's a lie, which it should be, then we can just prove it wrong and they look bad. I think Tattletale also mentioned that. But then Arms Master's like, shut up, and like everyone immediately from then on knows, oh, it's the truth, because he tried to make Tattletale shut up because of it. He really just dug himself in a grave there.
Now, I believe I have the list here of everyone who died. I think I left something out here, but Kaiser died during the battle.
Yeah.
So Kaiser's dead. Velocity's dead. That's another speeder we knew. I'm looking through the list because I have my notes up for Arc 8. And I know Gallant died. So Dean died, a member of the Wards. And so did Aegis. So the leader of the Wards also died. In that fight. So the leader and the next one who is going to become the leader both died in that fight. So the wards took some hits. I feel bad for the wards because the wards, every time they have an aside, they feel super close and sad, and it just makes me sad when I think about how they're gonna deal with Aegis and Galliant dying.
We also got to look at the fact that Gru's arch nemesis is Taylor's bully, Sophia. Shadowstalker. It is. You don't really click that into place, but then you're like, oh my god.
So
like, she's brutal.
Here. Let me read out what Lisa said in that moment because it was super badass. To your credit, if any credit is due, that was an accident. Your program can't account for that many variables, probably. In the chaos of a bunch of capes trying to keep Leviathan pinned down. Either way, Leviathan did as you wanted, followed the path you plotted. You used a directed EMP to blast a nuke to nuke Skitter's armband, ensuring that she couldn't report Leviathan's position and call in reinforcements, buying yourself time to take on Leviathan one-on-one. Who cares if she died after all? She's the villain, and you're positive you'll win. That it'll be worth the body count. You just allowed Leviathan to rack up. Except you lost. So, how about I just do another announcement? Tell everyone that's still wearing an armband about an abbreviated version of the same story I just told you. How do you think they'd react? If you're really innocent, I'm sure your name will be cleared eventually, after the test results come back from the armband. If it's wrong, so we get in everybody's bad books for fucking around with an Endbringer. Hell, I'll even submit to being detained till you get things checked out. You can take me from there to jail if I'm wrong. Either way, you get some jerk in custody. It's her little story.
And like you can see on like everyone's like you can like read in the book like everyone's expression at that time is like, oh shit, he did in fact do that, because like
and like Gru steps in because Shadowstalker goes to like fuck up Taylor, and like Gru steps in and is like, you start a fight here, you better pray to some higher power that you can fucking spin this well enough to others that are looking, because it's the end of the truth if you don't. Too many eyes on this. And Trickster is in the background with a cell phone, like live streaming in the background. It's a really good moment where like all of Coil's people are like, fuck you, Arms Master. Fuck you.
Yeah. Arms Master, I'm so glad he got kicked out of being on the hero team because he's really selfish. And like during the fight, like when it got to the part where Arms Master was like talking to Leviathan, like, I know your every move, you can't stop me. I was like, oh, he planned for this, didn't he? Because the speech was too much like, I want to be the hero of the situation. I want the honor for this. Like at the very beginning when Taylor helped defeat Lung and then Arms Master wanted the credit for it. It's very reminiscent of that.
And then Taylor comes back to join the Iron Presiders, and they're like, listen, you come back to join us, the K gloves are taken off. You gotta accept concessions like Coil's pet. It's super bad.
So bad.
There'll be no more playing around. You have to go all in from here on out if you expect to convince them you're legit.
Oh yeah, no, I believe also during that fight, during the hospital was when she was revealed
to be a spy, yeah.
Been a spy, yeah, which
the
makes
team
it
had already kind of like split up at that point because of the Dinah situation. Yeah. So I think actually that already kind of softened the blow, so it wasn't as big a blowout because all the Undersiders still stepped in to defend her. But it does make, oh, you're coming back. Well, there are going to be some concessions if we allow you back into the fold.
Yeah, but like we didn't know she was back together with the team until Sophia's perspective, and I'd really like to talk about Sophia's perspective in this.
We're not there in that arc yet. We're in arc 8, arc 9. This is where Santa Seal is when Sophia's perspective is. So,
and I believe that's when they can.
We have Lisa's interlude, and we have Coil's interlude. Lisa's is her perspective on Leviathan fight and that whole situation. We kind of learned a lot about her powers there, and then Coil is about the world might be ending. Oh, great! Love that information.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
Now we're going through the wards. Sophia's is the last in that list of perspectives, however. So, first up. Let me pull up the note for that arc.
Weld?
Yes,
is Weld
arc
first?
1 is Weld. So Weld is a case 53. He's made almost completely of metal. He's been brought to Boston Bay to lead the wards. He was the leader of the Boston wards, which is apparently a much larger team. So 3 wards died in the Leviathan attack, which makes me feel bad because I only listed 2. And I know there's another one that I'm forgetting. So the remaining ones are Clockblocker, Vista, Kidwin, and Shadowstalker.
Yeah,
so
and like
we now
Gold
learn.
got
This is
there.
the first time we learned about the PRT classification system. So we learned all of the classifications. It's this one.
Finally.
We knew about like tinkers beforehand, but here are all of them. So mover, shaker, brute and breaker, master, tinker, blaster and thinker, striker, changer, trump, and stranger. So mover of power alters movements. Strikers are usually like glass cannons, basically. Brutes are the super strength augmentations. Breakers, I don't remember what they do. I'd have to look it up. But I think their power are kind of things that like alter physics. I think like Vista's a breaker.
Yeah, no, they break physics like clock blocker and
And then there's
the one that
the clock blocker is also a striker because he relies on touching people. So master Taylor is master.
What is a master?
So they control people or things. So Taylor is a master because she controls bugs. Then tinkers are people like Bakuda. They usually are Kidwin. They have a specialization. They are inventors. They are the Tony Starks, our masters of the universe. They are also Taylor's mortal enemies. Basically, the tinkers are always her problem.
Yeah.
Blasters,
Stun
long
guns.
range sort of fighters. Thinkers, that's like Lisa. They have powers over information and things like that. Striker, close range combat. Changer changes himself. Trump is having powers over other powers, which is not
like
explored.
power nullification.
Yeah, like this has not been explored this far in the series. We've not met Trump.
Yeah.
Oh, and then strangers are people like Imp who can make themselves noticeable, who can alter perceptions, who can revolve around powers based around unnoticeability, spying, deception.
I don't remember. Is Regent also a stranger classification because he can take control of people?
Oh no, Regent is a master.
Master. Okay.
In fact, this chapter sort of references there's a really powerful master in the city, and our assumption is that we are led to believe that it's Taylor in that chapter. It is revealed it's Regent. It's Alan.
Yeah.
We know that later. He's just not using his full powers. I like that like bait and switch here. It's a good bait and switch. We also learned that they put numbers next to them, so I'm gonna go over the numbers, and we're gonna have some fun. So Clock Blocker is a Striker 7, Vista is a Shaker 8, Kidwin is a Tinker 4, Shadowstalker, Breaker 3, Stranger 2, Mover 1. So the merchants have a Shaker 2, a Tinker, and a Mover 3, a Shifter 4. Now, I played a game with Cassidy where I made them try to guess who the classifications were. Do you think you can do that?
No, definitely not, but I'll give it a shot.
Okay, well, the merchants only have 3 people, but I don't remember their names because I know they all have really crappy names. So then there's
getting the merchants and the travelers mixed up.
Yeah, the 2 offshoots of the Empire 88. So Fenris Trojan, which is led by Hookwolf, who is a Changer 4, Brute 7. Then the Pure, led by Purity, have these breakdowns. They have Purity is a Blaster 8, Mover 4. Then they have a Breaker 9, Shifter 8, Stranger 3, Master 6. So Coil's power is unknown. Travelers have high ratings on their powers, but their crimes are low end. Then there's the Undersiders, 3 master classifications on 1 team. Only one of whom is any of particular concern. Investigations into 2 members have suggested sociopathic tendencies, and if they are channeling their efforts into low-threat activities such as robberies, we can afford to ignore them for the time being. Follow this crew. We learn that Labyrinth is like the most powerful cape in the city. She's a Shaker 12.
Yeah, and it's because of her the way her mind got messed up because of her getting her powers. It's the reason that she's not like the top of the list currently, I believe. And because she's on a team that's not doing as much currently. I believe the people who are the most dangerous right now are what was their names? The one group that's going around trying to give powers to people, put them in.
That would be the merchants, but they're not the most dangerous at the point of the story they're in. They're all dead.
No, but they're the top classification at that time.
Although merchants don't have actually that many powerful people.
No.
I believe that for the most powerful team, like total, like the most dangerous one would be Purities. pure.
Yeah.
She has the most people, or Faultline's crew, or the people without powers, Coil's men, who are just badass.
They're like so good. Like the sniper in Coil's crew. I think you mentioned this at one point. Like the sniper during the bank, was it? Like got kicked down off of a building, top of a building, and got up and sniped a person still. It might not have been during the bank. It might have been taking out
And then Weld introduces himself to the team as the leader, but the wards there's like 4 of them left, so they're overworked and traumatized. So this stranger who wasn't here during the Endbringer attack is not looked upon great in the beginning. Like, Clockblocker steps up to challenge him because he's like the oldest, I believe. But basically, Ward suggests training, and the Clockblocker says, "Have you seen the situation out there? Less than an hour ago, I saved a guy I know from my high school physics class from being dragged into an alleyway by half a dozen grown men. One of them stuck him with a needle before I got away from them. The hospitals are shut down or overcapacity, so I brought him here. He's upstairs right now, getting drugs to ensure he doesn't have HIV. Kid Win and I stopped some lunatics in gas masks from mixing ammonia and bleach into a poison gas. You know why? They wanted to off people in an apartment block so they could loot the place and stay there. There's people going fucking crazy out there, and you're talking about training." And Shadowstalker also says, "You're assuming it's going to pass. Some are saying that this is the way things are going to stay. I almost agree with them. This isn't the kind of city that bounces back from these things. Pull a 15-hour patrol back there and come out back and start and talk to me about hope. You know, I could almost play along, go the blind optimism, say yippee to training, but you don't even mention the guy you're replacing, a word for the dead. It's a matter of respect, bro." Kid Clockwalker leaves to go check on his family. I'll be back in the morning and leaves Kidwin to check the console. And it's just really sad. Like, even Shadowstalker is nice in this scene, like tells Vistic to go to sleep, and the elders are kind of protecting the younger people, and they're also like, Wild is being shunted to the side a little bit, because these people just went through some crazy ass trauma together. And you just brought in a stranger to lead the team.
Yeah, I remember the last line of his interlude was, "I just got here." Because, like, he just got there. He has no chance to, like, learn any of the old members of the team.
Vista pulls, like, Weld aside and tries to make peace, and Weld says, "I fucked up, I already lost them. No, they're just tired, and not for lack of sleep. You'll see what I mean. You could have mentioned Aegis, Browby, and Galliant, but you can't be blamed if Clockblocker didn't give you time to get around to it. Nobody's really in the mood for speeches." "Right." Weld replied, feeling lost. "They're the ones who died?" Vista gave him a look that could only be described as pity. "You didn't even learn their names? Never mind what I just said. Yeah, you fucked up."
Yeah.
It's really sad, because, like, he only knows what Pidgeot tells him, and Pidgeot's not gonna be the queen of empathy. She's awful. I feel bad for Weld, but at the same time, like, I understand where the team's coming from. You guys do it in masks all the time. When I post masks, you see what I mean. They're almost as fucked up as Worm.
Almost? I'd say sometimes more.
No, we'll see. Well, once you get to Arc 14, we'll come. Well, I'll check back with you on that. I'll continue asking when the Slaughterhouse 9 arc is over. We'll check back in.
Oh god.
So the 9.2 is about Flechette. It's Flechette and Shadowstalker are, like, kind of friendly. Because they're, like, rivals. Flechette's a vigilante. She's not part of the ward, but Shadowstalker respects her because Shadowstalker was a vigilante before she got too violent and was forced to join the wards. So they probably knew each other before that other wards are. But Flechette has this line to say: "I think you only need to wait like that if you're going to be violent. Why? When she has a tranquilizer bolt. I think in general, probably not just Sophia, but the Barton Bay capes are used in general to a different level of violence in wards from over the city." It's really interesting how everyone's like, fuck your hope. Barton Bay just got destroyed. Fuck this.
Yeah.
It's really kind of upsetting to see how all these really young people are like, let's go beat people up. Because that's the only solution to this problem, is working 15-hour shifts. Yeah, I feel like that's illegal. That's actually illegal. Because their heroes' child labor laws don't apply.
Yes. And Flechette's perspective is like, oh my god, she's really bad. She, like, really wants to beat them up.
Yeah, but we also see
she makes friends.
Shadowstalker is, like, not great, not a great person. Times like this where
No.
cop, jury, judge, and if it really comes down to it, executioner, were the
Uh-huh.
ones with the power. And Fletcher's like, maybe she's just had a rough week. And then we learned about Parian, who is
I like
a
Perion.
rogue who's a fashion student with stuffed animals as a gimmick. She builds like and controls stuffed animals. We haven't seen her in a fight outside of the Leviathan encounter, and Flechette goes to deal with her. They exchange identities and have a nice conversation. Flechette's real name is Lily, and Parian's is Sabah. And this is the first time meeting like a rogue that's not a villain.
Yeah.
Perrin is just protecting her place. And then we go to 9.3, Clock Blocker.
Clock blocker.
So he's recorded a lecture from the Parahom's university class, and Clock Blocker thinks it's a waste of time, and they should be out there helping people and not learning. And doing this in their off hours instead of taking the class together on Ward's time. Classic sign of trauma here. It's just like, I really like this arc. It's really fun.
I like getting to know the heroes more.
And they talk about
how
this
messed up
really
they are.
fun thing called cluster triggers. I don't think they use that term, but that's what it is. Another pattern we'll be exploring is the apparent effect of multiple trigger events occurring the same time and place. There's a very strong correlation between coinciding trigger events and the individuals displaying 3 or more powers rather than 2 or 1 predominant ones. So Kidwin asks if anyone got powers, if she's a cluster trigger. And Flechette talks about there's another person, is a persistent villain that has the same powers as her. And she's like, maybe that's something to think about.
So, like you said, the people who have cluster triggers together, they tend to have similar powers. Like instead of one person getting one power and one person getting the other, it's both of them have both powers, sort of thing.
Yeah. We learn that Clockblockers' dad is dying. New Wave is disbanding, so Glory Girl is around trying to check out the wards.
Yeah.
And Clockblocker says some mean things about Galleon to Vista, and she runs off upset. And Shadowstalker, even Shadowstalker, he is the one that convinced even Shadowstalker to play nice with her at this moment. So, like, Glory Girl is like, go apologize. Go. Also, I think that, Victoria in this chapter is depending a little more empathetic than her first appearance. Most of her family has died in an attack. I didn't read off the names in that one, but most of New Wave has died. So it's really just the main Dallin clan left. It's her mother. Her father is like in a depressive, sick state. Her sister and her, those are the ones left standing from New Wave. She's like a cousin or two left. Other than that, New Wave, which used to be one big family, is down to like 5 people.
Which is horribly depressing.
Yeah. So Vista had a crush on Gallant. This chapter makes me sad. Also, I think Clockblocker censoring himself and swearing around Vista is cute. It's funny. So Vista's name is Missy and Clockblocker's is Dennis. We learned their civilian names here.
And then Sophia like brings up the crush and like completely fucking ruins Vista. And I'm like, Sophia, what the fuck? I know you're a bully, but Jesus Christ, this is a literal like middle schooler. What are you doing?
Also, Vista has this to say. I miss the old Dennis, the guy who picked a sort of rude nickname and announced himself to the world in front of the news so Piggy and the other people in charge couldn't really make him change it. Because it was funny. Because he liked pushing limits and because he saw this all something fun. This new Dennis is so angry and now I guess I get why. And then my notes say, I'm sad. This chapter has made me sad.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to describe some horrifying scenes. This class is canceled because of something horrific. On each of the 3 interior walls of the older building was a body, 20 feet up in the air. Each had received a different kind of treatment. To the left was a corpse of an flayed, the gender no longer identifiable. Directly opposite the group was a corpse of an obese woman, black charred. Completing the scene was a body of what appeared to be a homeless man, one of the people that had been rendered homeless by the recent disaster due to the layers of clothing he wore. His limbs had been severed at each joint, then reconnected, so each joint was a short, foot-long length of chain. Nails placed through the chain kept them in position, head hanging, a macabre puppet overlying a body. The chains jangled and swung in the wind. Well, and my notes say, these kids weren't traumatized before, they are now.
Yeah, and this is
the
our first.
travelers fight the wards.
Mhm.
Trickster's power is really annoying.
Yeah, this is our first look at the Slaughterhouse 9, though we don't really find out that it's the Slaughterhouse 9 until like the end of the interlude, I believe. And is the chain one mannequins?
Yes.
Mannequin. The burning one is Burn Scar, and then the flayed one is either Jack Slash or Bonesaw?
Probably. Also, Clockblocker knows that he feels oddly calm as his group squared off against the villains with some of the highest power ratings in Brockton Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He fans out the paper, holding them like anyone else might hold a pair of knives. He realized what it was this calm, whatever else it was. The fight was a refuge from the feeling that plagued him since the fight with Leviathan ended. The feeling that he was always in the wrong place, doing the wrong thing, at the wrong time, in the face of a city in crisis and a dying father. This right here was what he needed.
I feel so sad for him.
The words make me feel real sad.
Yeah.
I never feel happy when I'm reading a word chapter. It's always just, man, I wish Taylor was there, or never mind, Taylor can go somewhere else. This is sad. Maybe Taylor should go to Boston.
Yeah.
Or Chicago or something.
And this like really shows that the children with powers are traumatized, like fully traumatized, and they don't do anything about it.
Of course, because of the way they get their powers, trigger events, it's just so fucking bad. So for Kidwin, it opens up, I'm a tinker, I'm supposed to be smart, so how could I have been so stupid?
Yeah.
So Kidwin keeps back on the fight, so Kidwin takes down Genesis. And he's like, oh, I have ADD, I easily get distracted, I leave my projects unfinished. He has dyscalculia, so he can't, math is really, really hard for him.
Which sucks for a tinker.
Yeah. He likes to daydream, so it's just... And then Kidwin is the one who, like, raises the idea of it being the Slaughterhouse 9. So he's
bringing himself down, then solving the mystery. Like,
yeah, and then he goes to talk to a kid been calling himself Chariot, and he's like really good at talking to Chariot and does this really good recruiting thing, but also figures out Chariot's a spy. Like in that one conversation, Kidwin's like, you should join. Spy. Yes, done. That's like
you should join. That's a little weird.
Maybe you're the opposite tinker stereotype, Kidwin, and you're bad with machines and good with people. Ever thought of that?
Yeah. Like he brings himself down so much, but also he's like incredibly good at like stuff he does. And like really good at pitching.
Yeah, Vista notes that Kidwin gets a good job from Pidgeot, which is a Blue Moon experience.
Yeah.
And Vista's trauma is not manifested through nihilism, such as when she says, what we do is dangerous. Sometimes we die. I don't see why I should worry about what happens 5 years from now, when I might not even be here.
Yeah.
And Kidwin explains the spy thing, and how they believe it's Coil. Kidwin's name is Chris, we find out. So we just find most of their civilian names with Pactor, so I'm picking them out. Clockblocker is stepping out in Aegis's place, so basically Ward is the leader in name, but Clockblocker is actually being the leader right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sophia is being a jerk. Vissa is handling her and starting with the worst way possible, expressing pity. It's like, I pity you, Sophia. And Sophia's like, doesn't know what to do with that. Is just angry.
Yeah.
It's like, how do I deal with someone expressing empathy toward me? No!
But like Sophia is so fucked up. So like she's rude to a middle schooler.
So, Shadow Stalkers one, you want to talk about this, so I'll let you do the narrating for this one.
In Shadowstalker POV, I believe we get a sight of some trucks are moving. Skitter comes out lures, basically we find out later that it's basically a lure, takes some stuff, lures Shadow Stalker away into an alley, drops the stuff, continues running, and then like tries to go up like a fire ladder or something, and then ends up ditching that and going behind a fence. Shadow Stalker is like, that's not gonna stop me. I can move through walls. What is she thinking? She's so dumb. And then throws something and realizes, oh shit, it's electric. How did she know that was my weakness? And like before, there's also like Skitter tries to pepper spray Shadow Stalker, and then it clicks for Shadow Stalker, like, oh shit, she knows both of my weaknesses. And I believe also earlier, Shadow Stalker was in like the shadowy form, and Skitter was using bugs to slow her down. I think that in Taylor's mind, she was using this to test out theories, like, oh, my bugs can slow her down. That's really good information to know for later.
I'm gonna say no. They planned this encounter out to the T. Okay. Lisa's the one that figured out their weaknesses. They've talked about it before.
Okay.
They talk about it either they capture Shadow Stalker so Alec can possess her body and they can go in the wards and get the information they need. Unfortunately, it's not Taylor's idea, it is Lisa's. Although I'm sure Taylor takes some measure of joy in beating up Sophia.
Yes, but like, then Shadow Stalker doesn't even think like, oh, electricity, this is a trap. She goes, oh, electricity, that's weird. She must have just found this place by luck. And I was screaming at that point, like, no, you're in a trap. What are you doing? But like, also, she's trapped. Oh, well. But then like, then Gru and Bitch and Tattletale come out, and Gru's shadow things that slow down Shadow Stalker, and Taylor's bugs working together, terrifying combo, also makes it so she literally can't move, and like her limbs are like being ripped apart from her or something in her shadow state, so she cannot go into shadow state or out of shadow state, I can't remember. And then they like drag her inside, sit her down, and like take like electricity cables and wrap them around her so she cannot move out of it with her shadow state, which is so smart. And this is the first time I think that we see the Undersiders working together from somebody else's POV, and the dead silence of them, except for Tattletale, terrifying. They have a set plan. It works incredibly well. They adjust incredibly well. It's like they're mentally linked, and it's terrifying because they work so well together. Their powers are like suited for each other almost. It's wild. And you get a true look at how terrifying the team is from that perspective.
Yeah, now let's do your opinions on the wards, like we do the opinions on the Undersiders. So we'll go character by character. What do you think of Weld?
The poor man needs a chance to prove himself to the team. I feel like he could be actually a pretty good addition to the team. Like I like him. He's really cool, and I like he's the first. I don't know how they refer to him, but like the
Case 53,
Case 53, and like Miss Piggy. I don't remember what her actual name is. Pidgeot.
Director Pidgeot.
Director Pidgeot is like just using him for show. Like Case 53s are pretty cool too, and like just for like.
Yeah, it's also I really like that the Protectorate shows that the reason that heroes exist is so normal people have a reason to like capes and not fear them.
Yeah,
that's the underlining tone of it. Is like being a member of the Protectorate is really dealing in politics, not being a hero or a villain. I really like Weld, but that's for other reasons because I read the whole book and I like Weld. Then Flechette. My notes is I'm glad that we finally have a character I can like that uses a crossbow, and I think her ability is neat. Also, her and Parian are cute.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I really like how Flechette and Parian are like working together, and Flechette like gave her like board phone number or something. He's like, hey, if you need help, I can help you, which I think is great. It's like the wholesome we need in this time. But also like Flechette dealing with Shadow Stalker's urge to kill is pretty interesting as well. And it's pretty fulfilling to see that other people also see how fucked up she is. Like other heroes also see how fucked up she is. I think that's nice to actually have that.
Well, you know that the full team doesn't like, and no one on the
Yeah.
team likes Shadowstalker because she's
No.
there as a punishment.
Yeah.
Then Clockblocker, Dennis.
Yeah. I gonna be honest, I don't really have much of an opinion about him. I feel really bad for his dad dying.
I'd feel bad because he is the oldest of the team, so he was going to be a leader before Wild showed up. So that's why he's the most chip on his shoulder. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, you think I can't do it? Even though Dennis is already being the leader when Wild shows up and after. Wild's just like awkwardly there giving them training tips in the background.
Yeah. But I think I kind of really like clock blockers. Like I love seeing Vista's take on like what Clock Blocker was before, the jokester, but now he has to like really step up and be serious because of trauma after Leviathan and like having to be the team leader.
All these kids had trigger events, and that makes me sad also. Like remembering that these children got their powers through something really horrible happening to them also makes me sad.
Honestly, I'm curious what Sophia's is. Did we ever get to know what Sophia's is?
You'll have to find out. Kid Win.
He'd win. I feel so bad. He's so self-deprecating, but he's so cool. He's so cool. Like he made that giant ass cannon in the bank robbery and then never got to use it again, which I'm so sad about, which they could have really used that against Leviathan, but they didn't. They should have used that against Leviathan.
Vista.
Vista. She's a child. She shouldn't be doing this. But also she needs it. So she has trading with her warping of space ability, which is so overpowered. Also,
she's still not the most powerful shaker.
Yeah, like holy shit.
That belongs to Labyrinth, who can bring other worlds to this world.
Yeah, the world she makes.
Our opinion on Shadowstalker pretty clear.
Yeah.
I feel like this doesn't have to be restated. Arc 10, Parasite. I feel like the make or break of this arc is Alex's interlude. So let's just jump into that.
Alex's interlude. Oh my god. Seeing him just like, yeah, I'll release you, Shadowstalker, and then just doesn't.
And also, like, when they're in that conversation with Coil, they're like, just like, please don't notice, I'm distracted, please don't notice, I'm distracted. Thank God I don't normally talk. It would have been really normal, really weird if I'd go quiet now. Please don't notice I'm distracted.
Yeah, and like, also, like, he mentions during his interlude, like, yeah, I'm the background character, the jokester, and I'm fine with that because then this goes oversighted.
Yeah,
I don't remember the exact wording for that.
He's like fine with that because he's like, they're friends. Like Lisa, Taylor, Brian, Rachel, they're friends. Is basically what he knows, and I'm like the background character in their life story, but I'm fine with that. I know that. I'm okay with that. Because it made sure that they wouldn't notice when I went quiet in the car, and I could do this. Things like that. Also, like, Alex's self-awareness of, like, yeah, I'm a fucking sociopath. I know that. I have to feel emotions to other people. So...
so bad.
Also, this is one of the notes that I brought up in the chapter, and I want to bring up backwards in the story and going forwards, is that he is like, what did this to me? Was it my upbringing? Or is it my power, because my power wants me to use it. And if I can only feel emotions through my power, then I want to use my power. That's one of the first, like, notes we get, that power might maketh man a little more on the sideline, because we already know that shard babies.
Yeah, shard babies.
Alien death babies.
Insane, yeah. But, like, his interlude where he's like, he seems to be doing stuff at random with Sophia, like getting her to go home.
Like, systematically ruining her life.
Systematically, like, and I forget her name. Emily, the
Emma.
other bully, Emma. I was close. Like calling Emma at like 4 a.m. and being like, "Yeah, I love you." Fully probably wrecked part of Sophia's life doing that.
Well, he went to the heroes, he mailed the text to them, he like ruined her relationship with her parents, like revealed her Cape identity to her brother. and like what she wasn't supposed to do. Like he systematically ruined her life because he's like, "You're gonna come back, so I'm gonna make sure you won't come back. You can't come back from this because you're not gonna listen to my warning."
And then Alec is like, "Oh, you were bullying Taylor, huh? Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna send this to police too."
Yeah, because he's like, I should feel bad about that, but I don't, and that makes me more upset. She's like going through the motions, basically, of like feeding off of Sophia's own anger to power his anger towards Sophia.
Yeah,
because he can't feel, but if he's not like doing that, because he's a sociopath.
Yeah. And then like at the end where he's like, he makes her write a suicide note, and
and then like it's kind of played like, oh, he might have just accidentally and played it off as not getting a suicide. That's like, or he didn't, and you can read into that however you like. But he like really is like, if you don't do this, if you don't get the fuck out of the city, I will kill you. And no one will know. They'll just think you killed yourself.
And then she's truly terrified for her life, which like this is like the first time I actually feel bad for Sophia.
Because he does like, I don't like, I felt bad in like an impersonal way for her. Like, oh, this is a terrible thing happening to you, but like, you stuffed Taylor into a locker full of tampons, so fuck you too.
Yeah, I feel like ooh, that kind of sucked. Like that really sucks.
Oh, I'm so
also,
sorry,
like,
your life's ruined. You ruined Taylor's life. Oh, karma. Oh, the karma.
Karma in the form of a very powerful, scary sociopath.
Yes. But also, Alec has always been the one that asked Taylor, like, well, why, if you're a supervillain, why don't you use your powers on them? Just like mess with them, even. Like he brings up on arc 4, where he's like, why are you the supervillain then? Like he's the one pressing on her. I was like, if you don't want to use your powers on them or let us do something, then why are you a supervillain? And she's like, escape. I'm like, there you go, Taylor. You're correct. Ding, 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 1,000 points. That's really good because Alec was always shown as the one that's like, I'll get revenge. Like, say the word and we'll fuck them up.
She didn't even say the word. He did it anyways.
And he was like, well, now that I have you here, and nobody's gonna know, I might as well, right?
Yeah.
Because at first he's just doing it because she won't leave the city if he doesn't do something. Mm-hmm. But then he's like, oh, you're the one that bullied Taylor.
Oh. What an opportunity that fell into my lap here. Oh.
Yeah, then we move to Arc 11, Infestation, otherwise known as the longest arc ever.
Longest arc.
It's basically 2 arcs.
Yeah, I sat down and played a video game while listening to this entire thing, and it took like basically the entire day.
So what do you think of the Slaughterhouse 9 in the arc that we are currently in the story and will currently be exploring going forward?
I think my favorite Slaughterhouse 9 member is, you're going to have to tell me the name, the one that looks kind of like a zebra, the one who knows animal behavior. Siberian. I like her.
I don't think it's appropriate to say you have a favorite member of the Slaughterhouse 9.
No.
They're all psychopaths.
They're all psychopaths, but her way of approaching Bitch and like actually...
Yeah, I think Siberian had the most humane way of approaching a person for the candidacy, because everyone else was like, oh, you're fucking dead. My favorite interlude horror-wise in this chapter was Bonesaws, because I'm a sucker for good body horror, and Bonesaw is what supplies that to me. She's my inspiration.
Yeah. And her way of being like, oh, we can fix your not willingness to mess with the mind, see? We just did it.
Yeah, and I'm like, watch your language, silly. Well, I've stitched these 2 horrific beings together. What do you think I should name them? I was thinking something to do with like a temple or building.
She acts so innocent and like a child, but she's fully fucking insane.
Yeah, and the reason Bonesaw picks Amy is like, oh, I always wanted to be a sister. Have a sister, and Amy's like, I'm a shitty sister. And watch your language!
And then it's revealed at the end of that interlude why is because I believe she was adopted into the family, and ended up having a crush on her sister.
Which is really fun because we had some scenes earlier where it was kind of like hinted that something was going on between her and Gallant. But now it seems that it was jealousy. Amy was jealous of Gallant. And it's like, Amy thinks it's like kind of fucked up. But also, another thing Bonesaw says is, it's easy to break bodies, easy to scar them and hurt them that way, but the true art is what you do inside their heads. Do you have a breaking point, Amy? Maybe if you find your limits and push past them, you'll find yourself in a place where you'll want to join us. And so basically, she pushes Amy to hurt Murder Out so she doesn't hurt Mark, and kill Pagoda, which is the name she eventually picked. So we also get like this super crazy shit where she's like, because she experiments on powers, she knows them. So your powers can affect people's brain. You have to understand, I've taken 20 or 30 people apart to figure out how their powers work, so I can put them back together again the way I want them. I've learned almost everything about powers. I've induced stress of all kinds of people until they had a trigger event, while I had them on my table and wired to computers, so I could record all the details and study their brains and bodies as powers took hold. I know the secrets. I know where powers come from. I know how they work. I know how your powers work. We have to understand, people like you and me, who got our powers in moments of critical stress, the powers weren't meant for us. They're accidents. We're accidents. And I think you could see it if you were touching someone while they had their trigger event.
My question is, though, from that, then when is it on purpose that people get powers? Because if it's accident that people get it from trigger events, I don't know. When is it on purpose?
I think we'll talk about that in Arc 12 when we get to Arc 12.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Because we talk about we meet Cauldron.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's been bugging me for
gives
like
people powers.
Yeah.
Purposefully. And she also goes, you need to understand is that the subject of her powers, the stuff it can work on, like people, like the fish lady in Asia or the boy who can talk to computers. Our powers weren't created to work on those things with people or fish or computers. It's not intentional. It happens because the powers connect to us. In moments when we have our trigger events, decrypt our brains and search for something in the world they can connect to that loosely correlate with how the powers were originally supposed to work. In those 1 to 8 seconds it takes our powers to work, our power goes into overdrive and picks up all the necessary details about those things, like people, or fish, or computers, and sometimes reaches across the whole world to do it. Then it comes condensing down until there's a power set, stripping away everything it doesn't need to make that power work. And then, before it can destroy us, before we hurt ourselves with our own power, before the spark of potential burns out, it changes gears, it figures out how to function with us. It protects us from all the ways our powers might hurt us, that we can anticipate, because there's no point if it kills us. It connects with our emotional state at the time the power came together, because it's the context that builds up everything else. It's so amazingly complicated and beautiful. This is also something I wanted to talk about that's super interesting. Is basically what Bonesaw is applying is if you're in a state like your trigger event, if you're feeling emotions like your trigger event, then your power is stronger. Because in the context that it's supposed to be used, which is really interesting because Taylor is almost always in a situation where she feels helpless like her trigger event, which explains her overwhelming control and power.
Yeah, and like
powerlessness haunts her life.
Yeah, back in one of the previous arcs where she was in the doctor's office with the concussion, and she's like, she brings up the fact the music that is playing right outside the door by a person walking by, which she hears because there's a moth on the door, which she previously was not able to do at all. And then Taylor and Tattletale talk about it later on, and like maybe it's arc 11, can't remember. But they're like, oh, it's because you're close to your trigger event. That's why. Maybe you should try training that because you know you can do it. Maybe you can get better at it that way.
Yeah, now there's also just a funny line from Bonesaw. Now fix him, he'll probably be a vegetable. Unless you're okay with that, in which case we're making progress. Which is just so amazingly awful. It's such a good line. Bonesaw is such a good villain. She's amazingly creeptastic. All the Slaughterhouse-9 are, like, great horror villains.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know, we were playing a session of Masks, which is our next campaign that will hopefully be posted soon on the channel.
I'll watch it.
We're superhero. Well, might not watch, but be able to watch it when I post this episode, so think about watching it. Think about it. And feel the anticipation. But they play superheroes in that campaign. It's Masks. So they've come across some villains that I try to emulate the feel from Worm, although lighter, because the tone of the campaign isn't as dark as Worm, even though you guys are trying to bring it there.
Somehow we've cycled back to it. But it's like, yeah, like playing Worm, Devil's Lake, while playing Masks and Devil's Lake and like being in like Devil's Lake stuff, while listening to Worm is crazy because like I can see like how things in Devil's Lake have been like built after a little bit of Worm, like the Endbringers.
Yeah, so Arc 12 is about Taylor, the Slaughterhouse 9, and her plan to get Dinah back. It also has an interlude from Jack Slash, which is a very interesting interlude, where he's like, this is how we keep these people together.
Here's the carrot, here's the stick for each person.
So,
and seeing that Shatterbirds is just validation is her carrot is interesting because she's so terrifying and that validation is her carrot.
He goes through each of them. So he knows too well that Shatterbolt pretended civility, but she got as restless as Siberian when things got quiet, and she would look up from books whenever she read she read every 30, 15, or 10 seconds as if waiting for something to happen and craving it. Siberian would begin to look at her group members in a hungry way. She didn't need to eat, but she enjoyed the experience, wanted it the same way someone else might crave their morning coffee. Stimulation. Keeping the group in line was a matter of balancing carrots and sticks. A constant, delicate process. Every member sought out something from the others, however solitary they might strive to appear. Carrots that Jack could use to keep them as a part of the group and entice them to stay, to cooperate. It was not easy. What served as a stick to one might easily be a carrot to another. Siberian was tricky. He doubted anyone else in the group was even aware, but their most fair member harbored a fondness for Bonesaw. Siberian had little imagination and was perfectly comfortable rehashing the same violent and visceral scenarios time and time again, but she nonetheless enjoyed Bonesaw's work. She saw a kind of beauty in it. Even more than that, he sometimes wondered if Siberian didn't reciprocate Bonesaw's desire for family. Bonesaw alternatively referred to Siberian as an older sister or the family pet, but Siberian's fondness for Bonesaw bordered on maternal, like a mother bear for her cub. Did anyone else in the group note how Siberian seemed to keep Bonesaw's company, to assume she would accompany the one girl when she went out and carefully kept Bonesaw inside all the time? Bonesaw wanted family. Her stick was disapproval or revoking of any love from those closest to her. She was far younger, emotionally, than her outward appearance suggested. She had bad dreams at night if she didn't sleep in the embrace of one of her older teammates, usually Siberian. When she didn't sleep, when her mood was otherwise soured, she was as intolerable as any of the others, and among the most dangerous. And Cherish, who would not survive their stay in Walkern Bay. After fashion. Hope was her carrot, and she had only sticks waiting for her. He met her eyes and knew she knew what he was thinking. She was all too aware of an ugly fate awaiting her, but didn't know what it was. The fear helped curb her. Still, she would have to watch his back. Armsmaster and Regent were abrasive enough that they'd likely prick Shatterbolt's pride. Bish would be a risk at first, but he trusted his ability to manage her and stop any fights from interrupting. Siberian would become jealous of any growing relationship between Pansy and Bonesaw. That left him with two candidates who might work. He doubted either Hook or Bitch had what it take to stay in the group long term. They'd soon be replaced, killed by an enemy or a member of the group, but they would not upset his carefully staged balance with the remaining members.
Him running through the possible people who will join the team and being like, oh, this person is not going to mesh well. This person's not going to mesh well. These two people are going to mesh well, but they're not going to stay long. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So the next interlude is from Jamie. So we meet Dr. Mother. Dr. Mother says, no names. We've already investigated you. We know what we need to know, but I think there's a great deal of symbolic value in having you maintain some anonymity. Pick a name, and I will use it for the duration of the meeting. It doesn't need to be permanent or long-term. Welcome to Cauldron, the doctor says. We own several of those sites. All are fakes. That might have been when we first noticed your activity. So the Cauldron conspiracy theory, where they're making the Case 53s, they're giving people powers, there's a Nemesis program where they're making villains for perfect heroes or heroes perfect villains to fight, to look better, which is insane.
Mm-hmm. And, like, my question, of course, is what is their goal here? Are they doing, like, the same thing that...
You can tell they have one from the way Dr. Mother speaks. She just doesn't let what it is slip. So I want to talk to you about expectations before we begin. You should know that almost every aspect of this experience will be tailored to your taste. Cauldron's usual routine, however, is to arrange one face-to-face meeting. We'll discuss your budget, your situation, your goal, and then we will pursue a catalog to find something that fits your budget, and hopefully give you the results you desire. There is a 2-month waiting period, during which time I will assign you some testing, some regarding your physical condition, other tests for psychological reasons. We will give powers to anyone who pays. Rest assured, if you wish this to end this meeting now because of a pang of conscience, we will see you return to the barn shortly. The testings will include blood tests, stress tests, MRI, CAT scan, radioactive scan, and Torsten DNA sequencing. These scans are primary for our purposes, and if you prefer, you can have a family doctor arrange or conduct those tests instead for a small fee. A larger fee will allow you to skip the tests entirely. Good, you need to forgive me, but I must be blunt. Cauldron operates on a strict policy of secrecy. It is crass of me to do this, but know that if you pass on any knowledge of what transpired here, we will have ways to find out, and we will force to employ countermeasures. This is in effect, even if you decide you do not wish to sign anything. We try to avoid murder in the course of doing business, not just because of the moral issues, but because it draws attention. For leaks, our usual procedure is to discredit the individual in question and deploy our in-house division of parahumans to drive them into hiding, remove their powers, or both. Try to avoid murder. The phasing implies the doctor or Cauldron had gone that far before. She didn't like that, and she especially didn't like the fact that the doctor was phrasing things so she'd miss that detail if she wasn't listening carefully. So she's trying to defeat a villain called Madcap. You could theoretically push this in a range of p-value. You'd be forfeiting a great deal of power in the other two departments. Your powers would be relatively simple, defaulting to the sort of villains that countless other heroes already have, and with the low R score. You'd be risking getting something you do not want, physical changes perhaps, or powers outside of the area you wanted. Super strength when you desire telekinesis, for a quick example. We have options.
Turns into battery. I remember this.
And I don't know. We have options, but I don't know that they apply to your case. I mentioned the psychological testing earlier. You should know that the individual's personality, mental state, and background do seem to have a great deal of effect on the resulting power. I'd even say they're ones resulting primary factors outside the sample itself. We do have a package damage we call shaping and other called Morpheus. Both are intended to make the most of the 2-month waiting period to help the client reach the ideal mental and emotional state. It's often purchased by our high-end customers to refine the powers they want, and help ensure that there are no untoward effects. For a low-end customer such as yourself, I don't know what would suit your needs. You would be buying a lower quality sample to pay for the package. Perhaps if you were someone who wanted powers for recreational purposes. If you wanted to help guarantee you got the ability to fly, for example. There's the Nemesis program, but you already have an opponent in mind, and I expect you're more interested in a fair fight than having an opponent you're guaranteed to succeed against when it counts. The Nemesis program. How many prominent heroes or villains are out there that faked or staged confrontations like that? It's our tendency to require that any client be prepared to perform one unspecified favor for us at a later date, usually a simple task or a week of service. It serves as a way to cover our bases without revealing too much information in our results. So Jamie's battery, Madcap becomes assault by just pestering the fuck out of her. It's
I think it's hilarious.
I'll be a hero if you let me work with her.
Yeah, and then he's like, I've got a name already. Assault, which is perfect because battery and assault.
Yeah, so his real name's Ethan. Word down, introduces an enemies to friends to lovers.
And
it's
so her hilarious.
Favor, Siberian and Shatterbird are to escape the city, and our business will be done with you.
Her last favor, in fact. It's pretty interesting.
Yep.
Which implies that Siberian and Shatterbolt are some part of Shatterbird are some part of the plan of Cauldron, or are people that Cauldron gave powers to, which is interesting.
Very interesting. But with that, we draw our recap of arcs 1 through 12 to close. Any finishing thoughts?
I can't wait to listen to more.
Yes, well, you will be joining us next time while we look and read through Arc 13, Snare, as we see what else the Slaughterhouse 9 have in store for us. That will draw this episode to a close, so thank you for watching another episode of Anecdotal Adventures Reads Worm, and we will see you all next time.